So while I was outlining or scripting yesterday's original video topic, a question popped into my head that I've been getting asked all year, and since these summer events are right around the corner, I thought I would go ahead and make this video to maybe put some minds at ease, and that is the question that is somewhere reframed in the title of this video, and is something along the tune of, is Summer Ibuki even worth going for when we know that Summer Melusine is going to be coming out the year after? And I know exactly where this comes from. It's not really from my whale players because they're probably just going to get every single servant in the game regardless, or even if they're just going to go for one as their main farmer, the other one is probably still at least going to be a trophy summon they go for. It's my free-to-play players who unfortunately do kind of have to min-max their Saint Quartz between characters they really like and characters that are going to make the game not a complete slog for them, right? I've been there during year 3 without having a Scotty. I got through it, but it was not very fun. And I do understand the sentiment of going for servants that you just like. I mean, last year I went and summoned for Ruler Jean, who I only used a couple months back in Tesla Fest for the high damage reduction crab fight, and have not used her anywhere else outside of that, but I just like Jean, I like her in my Chaldea, and I like getting a really short Valentine's. And so I summoned for her for that reason. But after NA got a taste of the absolute nightmare of the Lost Belt 6 banners into the anniversary banners, that was Morgan into Melusine, into Koyanskaya, into Oberon, into Morgan again, which had 2 must-summon supports that you had to have knowing about 90 plus and 90 plus plus farming. But then, to make it even worse, the 2 Morgan banners had different kind of bonuses to them. If you went for the first one, it had Kucaster on there, who was really good with both of those must-have supports that you were going to go summon for. But that would mean you would have less Saint Quartz saved up for Koyanskaya and Oberon. But then if you still wanted Morgan and prioritized getting the supports, well, you might not have any Saint Quartz left by the time you're done summoning on both of them, plus Kucaster's not on the follow-up banner. Then you also take into consideration that Bargus and Sith are on some of the banners as well, and that might sway your opinion because of how popular they were. It was an absolute nightmare scenario for us over here on the NA side of things, so much so that I had to actually save up a small reserve of money every single month to make sure that I was like, okay, I know I'm probably going to have to buy a pack or two. Let me just start setting aside a little bit of money every single month to make like a little summoning fund. Which sounds really ridiculous when you say that. Because again, I'm mostly free to play on both of these versions. I pretty much only buy the GSSRs, and maybe I'll do the Destiny Order summon. Because spending money on gacha games is the most soul-draining feeling in the world, and I try to avoid it if at all possible. So I understand where my free-to-play players are coming from. You may be thinking, well, if Ibuki's gonna get power crept next year, then I can just grab both of the supports and summon for Ruler Melusine next year. And that's a perfectly fine take to have. If that's what you want to do, I think that's completely viable. I think Ibuki's good and worth summoning for, but if you'd rather just grab the supports because that's all you got the quartz for, then hey, that makes sense. But if you're someone who really likes Ibuki, and maybe you don't even like Melusine that much, and you'd rather just use Ibuki, but then you're kind of wondering, is it a waste of Saint Quartz to go summon for this unit that might not be as good as one who's going to come out a year later? Am I wasting my Saint Quartz? Am I going to be putting myself at a disadvantage going for a servant that I like? Which, some people can put that aside, I understand. I mean, I'm one of those people. I have an NP1 Morgan on JP, and I still try to bring her out to random quests, even if she's not exactly tailor-made to take them down. I understand that feeling, but I also understand the feeling of not wanting to be left behind almost in a way and not being able to optimally farm the 90 plus and especially the 90 plus plus nodes that everybody's making a really big deal about. Because yeah, if you want the straight up answer, Melusine is going to be a bit better for the 90 plus plus meta. If you're going to have to use her on a wave that only has one enemy, having an 80% battery when you're only probably going to refund 20 to 30% NP back is going to be better if you only have a 50% battery that is going to leave you missing the mark on a follow-up NP, especially when that looper does have to rely on their own battery because your supports are probably going to be giving the rest of that charge to whatever other DPS you're bringing for that 90 plus plus setup if you're not just buster farming it anyway. There's also the fact that they just gave Melusine an additional power mod, which is very frustrating because her main power mod is the same one as Ibuki's. They directly compete with one another as arts AoE loopers with really high damage, Ibuki because she's a berserker, and Melusine because her natural damage is already really high, and they both have the earth power mod, but then they tacked an additional one onto Melusine. There are some nodes that my Ibuki will whiff on. I mean, if you've been to any of my streams, you've seen it happen where I'll be like, come on, Ibuki, you let him live with 20,000 HP or something to that effect. And if she had the additional power mod, she probably would have cleared, or she could have been used in other stages. If she had that extra little power mod, there might be other stages where she could find uses in. And so, yes, I can definitely understand, as someone who has had extensive use with Ibuki at NP1 for a year and then got her a second copy on the Destiny Order Summon and started using NP2 for a year, I definitely understand the frustration of having 30% less on the battery and then having an additional power mod and basically similar damage, because it does kind of bottom out with Melusine's higher base damage, but then Ibuki's a berserker, so she's super effective on pretty much everything, so it does kind of bottom out, and it is a bit frustrating. But as someone that has used her for the last 2 years, if you want to go summon for your giant snake mommy, you know, you're going to be absolutely fine. I've been able to get through pretty much all of the 90 plus content that I've done that at least had some Earth attribute person or someone there for me to use Ibuki in, with a pretty, I would say, suboptimal account over on the JP side of things. I mean, we still have Castoria, you know, I have Ibuki, managed to get her at NP2, but there's no Oberon or anything over there. I can't massively gas up my Ibuki's damage. But to be fair, in my position, if I had Ruler Melusine, it wouldn't really be any different, because I'd probably still miss out on certain kills, because not having Oberon there to massively inflate the numbers for Black Grail, that's just going to be a thing. That's just going to happen. And since this has been a question that I've been getting ever since Summer Melusine released, and especially more at the beginning of this year, and more frequently as we start leading up into the summer event being about, what, a month, maybe a month and a half away at the absolute most, I just wanted to kind of ease some of the anxiety on our NA players. Because again, I understand last year was pretty rough. I really hope we never find ourselves in a situation like that again, where like 5 must-summon units are all back to back to back. That was extremely stressful, but it's not like that, right? If you want to use Ibuki and you know you've got Castoria, you've got Oberon, or maybe you're planning on going for Oberon later on in the year, or Castoria when she comes back later on in the year, then you'll be perfectly fine with Ibuki. But if you would rather go for Melusine because technically she is better with the larger battery and the additional power mod, then that's also fine. There's this notion that every single summer we get an AoE arts unit that has to power creep the last one, except from the jump from year 1 to year 2, because Rider Mordred is definitely better than the Archer Helena that we got. And it does feel like in some years we were getting large jumps. I mean, Summer Masashi was definitely really good, but Summer Kiara didn't feel like that much more of a jump. It was kind of like lower NP gain, but an actual battery, so that was the trade-off, which was kind of the way that loopers were going. They wanted to have that battery as an insurance. And then, you know, getting Summer Kama, that was pretty good, because he was getting like a really high damaging servant that had the big battery, and had a power mod that she could slap on whatever wave she wanted. So even with some of the weird goofy waves that we have now, technically if the wave 1 is really big, your Kama could still kind of slap him real hard on the first one. But the point I want to make here is that the gap between Summer Ibuki and Summer Melusine doesn't actually feel that massive. I mean, it literally just is pretty much the same damage, the same power mod. We gave her an additional little power mod to help her out in certain scenarios and whatnot. And then we gave her an additional 30% battery, but didn't split it, which is the main thing. Because if it was a 50 and a 30% battery, then yeah, she would be really nuts, because being able to save your massive battery or split it into 2 smaller batteries generally goes a longer way, especially in 90++. And there's other little things, you know, Melusine has some survivability. She's less vulnerable because she's a ruler, not a berserker in challenge quests. She has NP damage, which plays really nice with Oberon. She stacks attack, so technically she builds up throughout the node. But it's not this massive jump in power creep. It's not as if we were going from Summer Masashi to then Summer Ibuki. It's not that large of a chasm. It's a nice hefty leap of a unit, but it's not putting Summary Ibuki out of a job. As I've been doing for the last 2 years, I've been able to get into the 90 plus and plus plus nodes with my Summary Ibuki, and it's been relatively fine, especially with multi-core setups. That's for the uninitiated. That's a single target and an AoE to take down a 90 plus plus node. So don't stress. If you do want to go for Ibuki because you like her more, you're going to invest more into her, then have no fear. She's still able to get everything done. Some things can be a little bit of a struggle because she's missing out on that extra battery and whatnot, but it's still something you should be able to persevere through, especially if you have Oberon, because keep in mind, I don't have Oberon and I've been having to push through these, and it's still possible. You just really got to think about it. So if you've already got that guy secured, then you can basically use whoever you want. Don't quote me on that. Don't try to bring Jason to like a 90 plus plus though to be like, well, ZTL said I could use whoever I want. I'm not blank check signing that, but hopefully now if you or a friend are ever wondering, you guys are talking and you're saying, oh man, do I even want to go for this unit? I'm not sure. You can refer them back to this video, and hopefully I don't have to go over this question anymore on stream. I might just start doing more of these videos, these frequently asked questions. Because once you start discussing and answering it for about a year plus, I feel like you get a little qualified to answer the question. And on that note, if there are any questions that you have in the comments down below, go ahead and drop those, and maybe it'll be a video of its own one day, who knows. But at least for now, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You guys have yourselves a nice rest of your day. Drop a like on the video if you enjoyed, subscribe, and I'll catch ya on the flippity floppity.